Hello, everybody. My name's John Lacey. Welcome to Coffee and Content. Today, we're going out on YouTube and LinkedIn Live. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're joining me live or watching the recording later on today or in sometime in the future. Thank you so much for being here. This has been kind of last minute, so I don't know that we're expecting too many people in the chat, but I did want to take this opportunity to talk to you about some of the things that I'm personally deeply passionate about, like video, live streaming, and content creation. So, I've got some great things in store for you today. Of course, I've got my coffee standing by, and it's really important that you have your coffee standing by because if you don't have your coffee, you may forget to check that the audio is actually going out to the live stream, which is what I did earlier today. And I thought, what the hell? I might as well tell you. I don't know if anyone caught that session, but nobody told me about it. So there's 50 minutes of my life I'm not getting back. So at least I know for next time. It's really important to double check those settings and make sure that they're working properly. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about OBS Studio, about sharing your screen, about using multiple monitors on your computer. But before we get to all of that, I want to talk to you a little bit about a social media content creation tool that you may not have thought of before. And it's something that I think a lot of us have negative connotations towards because people have used this in really rather painful ways. And I think we've all had this experience where different people have been like, subjecting us to the worst thing of our life as they go through each slide and bore us to tears. So I want to encourage you to think outside the box a little bit as I present this idea to you because I think it will be a little bit confronting to some of you, but let's go there. It's Microsoft PowerPoint. I know some of you are cringing already. It's okay. We're not going to make slides and slides of painful information in a million words on the screen. We're not going to bore you to tears. We're not going to subject you to death by PowerPoint. But I do want to unpack it a little bit because I think this is a tool a lot of you probably already have on your computer already. If you're using Microsoft Word, there's a good chance you have an Office subscription. You may have it as part of your school or your job work situation. So it's probably in the background somewhere. So I want to just talk to you about how I use some of it because I think it can be really, really useful. So first of all, by default, if I go to the design tab and we go to slide size, you'll see by default it comes to this widescreen 16 by 9 format, which is essentially what a horizontal video is. So if you think about that, it's a really great candidate for making any kind of video thumbnail, any kind of thing that you want to actually incorporate into your OBS setup or maybe have as a cutaway in an edited video. You can also use the standard 4:3 if you want to go old school. But you do also have this option for the custom slide size. So if we go down to our options here, we can go custom. These settings may be in different units. So you can see here on my screen, they're in centimeters, but I can type any kind of unit in as long as I remember to include that. So I can, if I wanted to create some square slides, I could go 1080 pixels, px by 1080 pixels, and that will do it for me. So now if I click OK, it'll ask me if I want to maximize or ensure fit. It probably doesn't matter too much because this is a brand new file that I haven't really done anything with yet, but we'll just go maximize. And the thing that I like about PowerPoint in particular is that, you have all these different slides. You can think of them as different pages. And there are two opportunities to be had there. So you can either create multiple versions of the same thing to create some variations and decide which way you want to go. But also you can have a number of different pieces of content in the same document. And if you save that document as a PDF, you can actually upload it as a file to LinkedIn. So people can sort of browse that file as almost like a carousel image or collection of pages. You can actually export each individual slide as its own PNG or JPEG file and upload that as a slideshow to Instagram. So those things are in themselves really, really quite useful. Make sure, if I put my accessibility hat on for a second, that you're always including the alt text and making sure that the PDF is tagged properly. but it's a really good place to start. So let me show you an example of how I've used this recently. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, and if you're interested in doing that, you can go to johnlacey.com/LinkedIn and do that there. But essentially, I had this interview with Sam Proof recently to talk about how he's using live streaming for Cute Avalanche, which is a kitten rescue service in Los Angeles. So after our interview, and you may have seen parts of this interview, I may even play this one for you a little bit later on today. But I sort of took what he said and I broke it down into different slides. He's talking about really just getting started, and I sort of incorporated what he said about, just getting started so you get a little bit of feedback alongside the more technical aspects of how to do that with OBS Studio. So once I've sort of got and of course, we really need to talk about the cute aspect of Cute Avalanche. So, of course, the kittens appear eventually. But I've got my branding here. I could quite easily make these slides and I can save that as a PDF. I can export them as PNGs and upload them to Instagram. I've done both of those things in recent times. And that's actually quite a surprisingly simple thing to do. So it may be something you might want to consider, whether you're, creating your own content or doing something for your business. Another use case I want to talk to you about is video thumbnails. So obviously video is something that I'm forever talking about. So you do need to create some thumbnails for those videos. And I guess I'm just going to resize this screen a little bit so you can see more of it. But the thing about this, obviously you can see a lot of these ones at the beginning all look very, very similar. And I think if you are the on-talent camera, the on-camera talent, I should say, you really should have some photos of yourself that you can incorporate into these things. But the nice thing about this is that, I played with different ideas. I had a bit of a template to start with. Eventually, I started exploring other options. So again, some of the things in terms of the interview with Sam that I've done, we've got different thumbnails, we've got different images that we can use on social. And this has sort of just evolved over time. So depending on what I've got access to and what I felt like using, I can do that there. And again, because it's very easy to duplicate these things and make changes, you can sort of think in terms of themes and variations. So, I started out with this as an idea to talk about vertical and horizontal video and how you can do that in OBS. And I tried another version with a lot of the same assets, but I've just sort of rearranged them. And, I showed that to a number of people and said, okay, which one do you think is better? And people ultimately want this one. But it was so powerful to actually have a moment to try that out. And even for today's session, we've got the coffee and content slides. So once you get these things on here, they're actually really pretty easy to manipulate and rearrange. And of course, if you let's duplicate this one. So if you've got something that you want to start with, and it's always a good idea to start with something you've already got rather than start from scratch, you can sort of come in and you can rearrange anything that's on here. You can come up to insert, you can bring in other images, you can put a screenshot in there. We've got all kinds of shapes that we can work with as well, and icons. So if I go to the library of icons, you can see all kinds of different things that we've got here. So if I wanted to reference something about video specifically, I can search for that. And I have all these icons returned, and you'll see that a lot of these come in both sort of a filled-in version and an outline version. So you really do have a lot of flexibility to bring these things in and combine them in a number of different ways. So I've got that there. I can make that bigger. I can come up to my graphics format and think about the fill. So maybe I want that to be a particular color. I could even get the eyedropper. Maybe I want to actually reuse this gold color that I've used up here. So I could bring that there. I can do all kinds of things with this. And I guess once you start playing, you realize the possibilities are really quite endless. So maybe I wanted to make myself a little bit smaller. Maybe I want to put myself in that frame. You have all kinds of options. You can combine different shapes. You can remove a background. You can pick a transparent color. They have a number of different presets. So, if you wanted a particular treatment, you can do that as well. I guess the big thing, and it took me a little bit of time to work this out, was that Once you start working with these options, so if you go to the graphics, or if I select any of these sorts of things, the selection pane is really really useful. So these will show you what's actually on top and what's at the bottom, and you can sort of if you need to isolate something, and it's very easy to sort of accidentally click on something. And I should note too that this grey bar, this logo, and actually not so much the gradient, but certainly the grey bar and the logo are actually, these images are created to fill the entire screen with a bit of transparency. So for that reason, it can be really easy to sort of accidentally select these things. So if I don't want to worry about them for the moment, I can just hit the little icon to the right of those names, and they just disappear, and then I can just focus on the things that I do want to sort of think about. So, if I did want to do something like with this, maybe I do want to make it bigger, maybe I want to resize it, I can do all of those sorts of things. So, I mean, there's just a few different ways that I've been using PowerPoint. And like I say, even the ability just to quickly duplicate it, change it, try a different version, get some feedback. And it might be like if you've got a video on YouTube and you try out a thumbnail and maybe you're not getting a lot of joy, maybe there's an opportunity to come back to that and rework the thumbnail and change that. Because although you can't really change the video itself, you certainly can revisit the thumbnail from time to time. And it may be that maybe over time you've changed your branding guidelines and you want to do something different there. So you've got different colors and different fonts. So this can be a really, really useful way of working through those things. So, you know, this one, for example, and I'll talk about this in a moment, but essentially I wanted to talk about OBS, running OBS Studio portably. So I went into Illustrator and I sort of dummied up this vector USB drive, and I put the OBS logo on top of it. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. Here's an example of the teleprompter video one that I used. All kinds of really cool stuff. So again, I know a lot of people probably have really, really bad connotations and experiences of Microsoft PowerPoint, but think outside the box a little bit and see what you can come up with. In a lot of ways, it probably doesn't matter what you're actually using to create the graphics, as long as they're the right size and format for your particular use case. But again, I just love the flexibility of PowerPoint in the sense that you can save these things to PDF. You can export each slide as its own individual image. So there's a lot of possibilities there. And I think when it comes to content creation, we really want to think about the possibilities. So if you've got questions, throw them in the chat. Like I said, we're going out live on LinkedIn and YouTube today. So hit me up in the chat if you've got something to share or ask about. I'd love to hear from you. In fact, while I'm doing that, okay, so I've got a LinkedIn user that said hi. So that's great. Hello, LinkedIn user. It's not actually telling me who you are in the restream, but it's lovely that you're out there. Let me just going to refresh that for a second. Okay, so I mean, there is somebody out there in LinkedIn land, which is lovely. I don't know who you are because for privacy reasons, Restream chat isn't telling me, but I love the fact that you're out there. So thank you for sharing. All right. So like I said, if you do have questions out there, that's awesome. Let me know in the chat. Let's get back to some of the content creation things. So one thing I really want to talk to you about is, and I've alluded to this already, is talking about OBS and how we can actually use that portably. So this is OBS Studio. This is video recording and live streaming software. It's completely free and open source software. I should note too, if you ever see a post that offers a sort of a cracked version of this with some sort of software key, that's not OBS Studio. You're not downloading OBS Studio. You're probably downloading a lot of viruses, so please stay away from those. And unfortunately, they really do exist, even on LinkedIn, I've noticed lately. So to get the official version of OBS Studio, make sure you always head over to obsproject.com. And why might you want to run a portable version of OBS Studio? So essentially, there's a number of different reasons. I guess the first one and the most timely one is that OBS Studio recently came out with version 28. And version 28 is wonderful. It can do so many amazing things. But unfortunately, a lot of the OBS plugins don't currently work with it. So if you're using plugins on OBS Studio, and I'm using a whole bunch of plugins on my setup, so even the ability to bring you my audio at the moment is something I can't really do in the way that I like to do in OBS 28. But so for this reason, I'm still working with OBS 27.2.4, which has served me quite well. So if you wanted to, if you just wanted to download and install OBS 28, you can certainly do that from the screen from Windows, Mac OS, Linux. But if you're more interested in running that portable version to sort of test it ahead of time, what I want you to do is actually come up to this download option at the top of the screen. And here it says download OBS Studio based on your operating system. So you can click on the one you're working with. Now, instead of downloading the installer, what we actually want to do here is download a zip file. So you'll download this zip file and uncompress it on your local computer, and you'll be good to go from there. So once that happens, you'll have a screen a little bit like this. So essentially, I've downloaded this zip file. I've uncompressed it to a folder that I've called OBS 28 Portable. Now, what we want to do is we want to come into the bin folder, which is the binary folder. So I can double click on that one. You'll see the 64-bit version. We can double click on that one as well. So here you've got OBS 64.exe. So we don't want to run that directly. What we do need to do is actually come in here and we want to right click on it, go create shortcut. Then we'll see that we've got our OBS 64.exe shortcut. If I right click on this one, we'll go to the properties, and in the shortcut tab, you'll see that we've got the target here. So you do need to add a little bit of extra text here, and I'll include some instructions on how to do this over at johnlacey.com. But essentially, at the end of this string, we want to do a space -- portable. And we can go OK. So now whenever we double click on this OBS 64.exe shortcut, and again, you can rename that to whatever you like. That's certainly an option. We can double click on this one and it will actually bring up our OBS portable version. So I'll just do that and we'll give it a moment to catch up. So immediately you'll see that there's a dialog box here, and this is maybe the reason you don't want to commit to OBS Studio right now, is that some of the plugins just can't load or work in version 28. All right. So we spoke a little bit about why you might want to do that, and in terms of 28 being our most recent version. But there are other reasons. So another reason you might want to do this is if you're creating vertical video and horizontal video in OBS Studio. So at the moment, this is actually defaulted to the vertical. So what we need to do is if I go into my file options and go to settings, and we'll go to video, you'll see up here, we've actually got the base canvas resolution. So this is essentially the setting we want to change if we want to either work with horizontal video or vertical video. So if I wanted to go back to horizontal video, I can literally just reverse these values and go 1920 by 1080. And then you'll see that that's now 16 by 9. So that's generally by default what you'll see. But imagine that you want to do a little bit of both in OBS Studio. You want to do some horizontal video and some vertical video. One of the things I do recommend is that you set up different scene collections. So at the moment, this first one is set up for, well, I mean, there's really nothing in this one, but just imagine that it's set up for horizontal video. And I've got another one that's set up for vertical video. Again, because that setting overrides everything that we see, we'd have to actually go back up to our file menu. We want to go to our settings, and we want to go to video options. And again, just reverse those values. So we want to do 1080 by 1920 and go OK. And now that I've got that setting in place, you can see that this is looking a little bit more like what I would expect to actually see. And you can keep switching back those settings back and forward for the end of time, and it's not really a big deal, but it's a little time consuming. It's a little bit annoying. If you had a version of OBS that was permanently in vertical and another version that was permanently horizontal, you could probably save yourself a lot of time and energy on that front. Okay, so that's another reason. Our third reason is that you might want to actually record videos about OBS Studio in OBS Studio. So this one is a little bit meta, and it may not apply to many of you, but I mean it's literally what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm streaming to you via the OBS 27 version, and I'm demonstrating version 28 as is this screen capture. So again, not for everybody, but some of you may find yourself in a situation where that might be a useful thing to do. And finally, you might want to run a portable version of this on a USB drive. So that could be another reason that you want to do that. So keep in mind that you do have that option to run OBS Studio in that fashion, which is really quite useful for a number of different reasons. Okay, so earlier in the week, I spoke to the good people of LinkedIn and asked them about their monitor setup. So the backstory to all of this was I was recently talking to a design teacher who was interested in using OBS Studio to share her teaching of the software, things like Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop. And we sort of spoke about the different ways in which you can actually share your screen or parts of your screen. And there are two main ways in OBS Studio. So one is the display capture, which essentially shows your entire screen or your monitor. And the second one is window capture. So that's to actually show a specific scene or a specific window on your computer. So, I mean, there are definitely ways of doing that even with one screen. But I have to tell you, as someone that uses a computer every single day of my life, pretty much, I would be so lost without at least two different screens. So it really got me curious. So I spoke to the good people of LinkedIn and I sort of said, how many screens are you using? How are you using them? And some wonderful people got back to me. And again, if let's just scroll down a little bit and look at some of these responses. So I might even just zoom in on Chrome just so you can see us a little bit more clearly. All right, awesome. So Jesse Kingsley wrote that he actually has a massive super wide monitor, and you've probably seen these. They look really, really cool. They're very high definition. And I guess the things that Jesse sort of presented to me, which were really amazing points. I love the fact that he shared these with us. Was first of all, those displays are very high. They have very high resolutions. And what that essentially means is the things on your screen look smaller. So if you're sharing them in Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or wherever, those things potentially can show up quite tiny, really. And you literally just saw me increase the zoom so you could see this particular comment better. And that's certainly one option. You can change your resolution for the purpose of sharing it. But I guess the other thing, the bigger issue essentially was simply that having one screen means if you share that entire screen, you're sharing everything and it's going to be super wide. And you can come in and actually crop what you're sharing, but it's going to be much more difficult to actually, isolate particular things on your screen and share them in that sense. So, I mean, one thing you can do is sort of share a separate window. So with that window capture, you could certainly do that as well. But I just thought it's a really important thing to keep in mind. And maybe if you do have that one giant screen, maybe you want a tiny little screen on the side just for sharing purposes, depending on what you're doing. So that was really interesting. And speaking of interesting, Garen Perkins sort of shared his views on this as well. And he sort of recommends there should be at least 3 monitors as a bare minimum. So for on-call situations, this is how he uses his. The left is the dedicated screen share or browser tabs. The center is the primary screen, so where the Zoom call will be. The right is for chat, OBS, and miscellaneous things. And the other thing he shared here, which is kind of amazing, and I was unaware of this because I didn't really need it, but there is a setting in OBS Studio that will, in fact, let me show you because we've got that portable version running. Let's go over here, and thank you so much to Garen for sharing this. So if you go into the file options and go down to settings, you'll see here, it's just in the general settings. There's an option here called hide OBS windows from screen capture. So if you're sharing the same, if you've only got one screen, or maybe you're, sharing something on the same screen that you're using OBS, that's probably a really good setting to check out. So thank you, Garen, for pointing that one out. That's amazing. I didn't know about that. That's really, really cool. Yeah, so we also had another Garen. There's a surprising number of Garens on LinkedIn, but this is Garen Belaney. When it's time to go, grab your micro studio, as he says. And he said, it's you can get a secondary monitor for a cost-effective rate. Your work efficiency skyrockets. So everyone needs to have a minimum of 2 monitors and a Stream Deck. Get those 2 things and watch your workflow efficiency triple. Okay, and I must admit, I do have the Stream Deck Extra Large. I'm gonna try and show it to you. I want to be careful I don't rip out the cord. But essentially, I have a whole bunch of buttons here. This is the extra large model. And the nice thing about the Stream Deck is you can program these buttons to do all kinds of things. So they're really useful if you're actually live streaming, if you're presenting things online, but they're also just great for general general work tasks. So again, further down here, I sort of unpack some of the things that I think are really useful. So in terms of the live streaming webcam meetings options, you've got the ability to record and stream. You can switch between different scenes and profiles in OBS Studio. You can mute and unmute your audio. This is huge. How many times in the last week have you been in a meeting where you had to start off by saying, you're on mute? Hit that button. Like, it happens all the time. And if you had a little button in front of you that was easy enough to toggle, you'd probably save a lot of that time. So, you can toggle your camera on or off. You can toggle the source visibility. So you can toggle studio mode, which is a really cool feature in OBS, which lets you actually sort of work on changing your one scene before you're actually in that scene. And we can talk about that another time. And of course, you can switch scenes while within studio mode with different buttons. But and those things are really, really cool. But if you're not a streamer, there are other things like multi-actions. So you can actually set up a button to do a number of different things, a number of different steps. You can launch applications. You can take screenshots. You can do text responses. And you can trigger a keyboard shortcut without a keyboard, without knowing that shortcut. And that's one thing about Windows applications, is that whenever they want to create a shortcut, they really need to make sure it's not being used by another piece of software. So you'll find sometimes you'll have to go Control Shift Function F4 to do something, which is really, really hard. But once the benefit of the Stream Deck is if you have to use that, you literally only do it once when you first set it up. And then you never need to worry about it again. So that's just some of the reasons I love the Stream Deck. And I do need to make some videos about the Stream Deck. So watch this space. And finally, Sam Proof dropped into the comments too. So obviously, if you've been following any of my content lately, I've spoken to Sam recently, done some interviews. He's a live streamer. He's been live streaming since about 2005. He's got a lot of experience. And one of the things he's involved in is, as he says here, I make interactive productions and save cats. So Cute Avalanche, which you can check out at cuteavalanche.com, is all about, rescuing kittens. And they have a live stream that's available for you to check on the progress of the kittens and donate to. It's a really cool thing. And we'll talk about that. In fact, I've got a video I'll play for you a little bit later as part of that interview. But anyway, he writes, for my personal setup, he had 4 cameras. The kitten cam had 2, but 1 died. So at the moment, the kitten cam is using OBS on one screen and chat on the other. And Sam's personal setup is OBS and chat on one screen, Discord on the second, the game or screen share on the third, and the fourth is the on-screen practical and background. So there are some examples of how different people are actually using a number of different monitors to get their work done. So I'd love to hear from you. If you're on the chat at the moment, let me know in those comments how many screens you're using and how you're finding it. I guess my recommendation is if you're only using one, if you can afford it, if you've got the space on your desk, if you've got the ability to plug in some power somewhere, I'd certainly invest in that second one. It can be really, really useful. Okay, I'm going to actually just take a sip of coffee. Okay, so thank you for joining me. Again, my name is John Lacey, and this is Coffee and Content. And you just saw me drink some coffee, as though to prove the point. One thing I did forget to mention actually was talking to Jesse about his super wide monitor. Is this little thing. So Microsoft Power Tools. So these are utilities to customize Windows. And there's a whole bunch of things baked into here, but the one that I use most of all is the fancy zones. And essentially, you can set up different regions in your screens to allow Windows to snap to them automatically. And you might be thinking, like, why is that useful? So I should note too that Microsoft Power Toys has a whole bunch of other things, but this is the one I use most of all. So essentially, and I'm not sure how well this will work on the screen, but we'll do it anyway. I've got 3 regions set up on this screen. So I've got one here over on the left. I've got one here over on the right. And if I hover over in the middle, it fills both of them and the gap in between. So again, let me just move to the left and I can let go of that. And you'll see that my browser has resized to that portion of the screen. I can do the same thing on the right and I can go down to the middle. And especially if you've got one of those giant monitors, the curved monitors that are really, really large, this can be a really great way of splitting up the screen because you probably wouldn't want to maximize a single application across all that space. So this is a great way of actually setting up those regions. One other thing you may notice about this is that even this one in the middle, which is taking up essentially all of the screen. And again, I know some of this is obscured by the grey bar and logo in the stream, but you'll notice that this doesn't fill the entire screen. So this isn't the same as maximizing my window. And you might wonder why that is the case. And there's one reason and one reason alone, but it drives me nuts. And this is why I do it. So if you've ever used Microsoft Teams to share your screen, you'll probably have experienced this. When you share, if I were to share this entire screen, there's a little sort of docked dialog box that appears sort of at the top of the screen. And it's really hard to actually get to anything underneath it. And if you're sharing your screen, often if you're maximized, you'll be trying to click and do stuff with this bar and you can't get to it, and it just drives me nuts. So that's part of the reason why I've actually sort of incorporated that in there. So I just wanted to mention that. That's another option. So if you do want to break up your screen into different regions, you can certainly do that. There are a whole bunch of other tools in here. I must admit, I barely have scratched the surface with this, but there are color pickers. There's image resizers, keyboard managers, mouse utilities. There's a screen ruler. There's all kinds of amazing stuff. Text extractor. Check it out. If you're a Windows user, check out Microsoft Power Tools because it's really, really cool and it's free. So we like that. If you're a Windows user, I'd highly recommend checking that one out. All right. So thank you for joining me. This has been sort of a very last minute session because of some technical issues, and also, frankly, because it's just been a really long, tiring week. And a part of me was tempted to say, "Look, let's just not do it this week." But I've got to follow my own advice. I've got to keep showing up. I've got to practice what I do. And, it's really important that we do this. So you saw earlier that we've seen a little bit of Sam Proof. He's sort of lingering in the content of late. So I want to share a video with you. Just part of the interview that we did with him. Before I do that, though, because I have actually had some issues with my audio, I just really want to double check that this is actually set up correctly. So just give me one moment. So that's the video. In fact, while I'm doing that, let's listen to a little bit of music. Gotta love a little bit of chill music on a weekend and some coffee. So let's check out the video now. If you are out there watching, and if you can't hear the sound, please let me know, and we'll revisit that. But here's Sam Pro from Cute Avalanche.
All you have to do is add a source, find video capture, boom, you got your camera on. Same thing, add a source, add your audio input, and you're good to start. And then figure out what it is you want to do with your stream. But honestly, just go. Just like start streaming as soon as you can, and you'll figure out where the blanks are that you want to fill in.
And that's Sam Pro from Cute Avalanche, and we've almost come full circle because earlier I was talking about PowerPoint as that content creation tool. And I think sometimes as content creators, we do have a bit of anxiety about sharing the same thing more than once. And I really encourage you to get over that because the truth is people they won't always see your content for algorithm reasons, and perhaps they weren't following you at the time. Maybe they just need to see it again and have that reminder. That's it's always a good idea to take the stuff you've got already and rework it. So you literally saw the video of the interview that we did, or a segment thereof, and I literally came in, I took Sam's words, I sort of unpacked how they work in OBS Studio as well. And they're there to I can save that as the PDF. I can share that via LinkedIn, and I can sort of export those as individual images and share them on Instagram. So the possibilities are really rather endless. So that's just be open to the possibilities. You don't need to do everything. But a big hello to the man himself, Garen Belaney. Apparently, he's not having coffee. He's enjoying some soup, which is fair enough because I imagine, I don't know what the time difference is between Australia and Canada, but it's probably too late in the afternoon/evening for you to be having too much caffeine, unless you're really okay with that. He says, I hope that's okay. That's fine. I'm happy for you to be enjoying whatever you need to enjoy. And, he says, I wish everyone presented as good as you, Mr. Lacey. Oh, shucks. So essentially, that is the bulk of what I wanted to share with you today. Like I said, I wasn't going to show up. I didn't have a good week. I didn't feel I was prepared enough. But sometimes you've just got to keep going. And I really need to sort of embrace that a little bit more. And to be honest, I feel this more spontaneous session has gone very well. So anyway, let me know your feedback. If you're if you're got any questions about video, live streaming, or content creation, hit me up. You can go to johnlacey.com/YouTube or /LinkedIn to find me and connect with me. And have a great weekend. Have a great week. And I'll talk to you again soon. Garen's telling me that it's 6 p.m. So he'll have a coffee after his soup. Very nice. So he's working that night shift as the entrepreneur that he is. So that's awesome. Again, take care, everybody. I'll talk to you again soon, and just keep doing the thing. It's one way of stopping the haters is just keep showing up, creating the things that you want to see in the world, and sharing your message. So take care, everybody. I'll talk to you again soon.